Liam, what is your first film to see this month
I
at
think
local
what
theaters?
I think what I'm about to say here is the biggest release, the biggest screening of the summer, which is at SIFF as part of their Cold War Summer Series. Austin Powers, 35 millimeter screening. I rewatched, I think, the first two Austin Powers during the pandemic.
Uh-huh.
The first Austin Powers movie has not aged a lick.
No.
It is hilarious. It is still funny. Yeah, there are jokes. Like, I was talking when we spoke with Carson Rennekamp on CityCast Seattle about it. Jane, our host, expressed a little bit of concern that, like, maybe it hasn't aged well. That movie was fully aware of what Austin Powers was in 1995 when it came out, which is 31 years ago. It's so funny, it's so smart, and it's so well directed and shot and edited that it is going to make you crave for the pre-Apatovian days when pointing a camera at someone and hitting record was not the de facto method for making comedy. So I would highly recommend that, and I'm going to pair it with film screening later in the month, which is Bottoms at Northwest Film Forum, which, while very different from Austin Powers, is a return to form in how it's a cleverly devised, written comedy with a real structure and a real plot. And I think Bottoms is one of the funniest movies of the decade so far.
Ooh, wow. Great Marshawn Lynch performance.
Great Marshawn Lynch. Everything about that movie just it's absolutely insane. Nicholas Galitzine should be doing stuff like that instead of, frankly, trying to play He-Man. I think he's better suited for this. So I know you asked for one, but I'm giving you those two. What's your first pick for August?
So I'll start off with one that I feel like contains within it two movies, and I mean that in a positive way, and that is Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma. I won't talk a whole lot about it now because I think we'll want to maybe talk about it next week in a little bit more detail, but this is the new film from Jane Schoenbrunn. It's going to be playing on 35 millimeter. It stars Hannah Einbinder from Hacks in her first feature leading role. She's done some stuff after this, but this is truly the first. And also stars, is it Gillian or Gillian Anderson?
You're talking about my wife, Gillian
Yes.
Anderson? Yes,
Yes.
it's Gillian.
Okay.
I think. I've loved her since X-Files.
Yes. We'll just go with the icon of X-Files, who is playing a former star of a horror film, and Hannah Einbinder is playing a filmmaker who's tasked with rebooting this horror movie series for like a new generation. And she travels to the Pacific Northwest to reconnect with this star and discovers much more than just a film. It's a lot of fun. It's very funny. I was at a screening of Maddie's Secret, the John Early film, a few weeks back, and they played the trailer for Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma, and it got applause. People were already on board with it, and I think it's not just that it's like playing to the crowd. I think it's that it's a very funny, well-made movie too. Like some of the jokes, like right out of the gate, are just so good, but then it becomes like a very sincere exploration of sex and identity and being comfortable in your own body, but then also is like a horror movie with blood geysers. I'll have more to talk about with it soon, but it's the one that I would say for this month is my top.
It feels like we're entering an era of, and maybe we've been here for a long time, of too much movie meta-ness in some of our genre stuff, right? Which is not necessarily a bad thing. Like, that could be a compliment. It's a lot of movie. It's like 4 different movies. But
here's the thing. I think this works as its own thing. Like, there are jokes about, like, have you seen many slasher movies? Have you seen...
Oh, yeah. I was raised on slasher movies.
Yeah. There are so many good jokes about not just slasher movies, but the culture around slasher movies and like the attempt to reclaim certain things, certain movies, whether that works, like the discourse around it. And it never feels like too inside baseball. Like you can still kind of get it even if you're not a horror person, because then I think the performances are like both very funny, but also sincere. It's a good one. It's
nice.
Not what I expected. If you've seen, because did you see I Saw the TV Glow or?
I did. I love I Saw the TV Glow. I mean, as much as that movie's devastating.
Yeah, this is more fun, but also I think cuts deep into some stuff. But I'll save more for next week when there will be more to share. What is your next pick that is not Austin Powers or Bottoms?
Well, keeping with the Cold War summer of it all, I have selected GoldenEye, also at Cold War Summer, which is playing at the end of the month in 35. Well, maybe not my favorite James Bond movie. It is probably the most important Bond movie of my life because I was raised on a steady diet of mostly Sean Connery by my dad and a mom who was like, these movies aren't about real life. He's a sexist pig. So I got both of those. And GoldenEye was the first one I saw in the movie theater because I was sort of old enough. And, between that and the video game GoldenEye kind of it kept me on the court. It kept me fed on a steady diet of James Bond movies. And, well, certainly not. It's in the top 3, probably. For me, it's that. It's On Her Majesty's Secret Service. And I'm a huge Skyfall fan. Talk about a meta take on Bond. That's very much a do we need James Bond movie? But GoldenEye comes from a time when I was a little bit of a, a movie bozo, the age of 13 or however old I was when it came out. And so it'll be cool. I'm hoping I can get to see it at this screening and kind of reconnect with that part of my youth. What is your next pick?
So I'm going to be going with Remake, which is a documentary that is going to be playing at the Northwest Film Forum starting next week. They had played Sherman's March, which is the same filmmakers before this. This is his newest film, and it's a pretty heavy one, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about it. But it's a very autobiographical portrait of a filmmaker and then losing his son. So that's inevitable to it, but I've been thinking not to get too serious about it. Talking with friends about death and life. Death is part of living, and we are in proximity to it, but we don't often talk about it. And that's understandable because it is hard. But it is also something that I think once you go through it, talking openly about it and confronting it because it is always on your mind is itself the only kind of way to process it. And so not as fun as a James Bond movie, certainly.
I mean, death surrounds James Bond.
Yeah,
at all
that's
times.
fair.
He's
But
right.
but
right.
death and haha, everything is fine.
Totally.
This is going to be a pretty devastating one, and I'll probably have more to say about it hopefully soon, just because I think it's a worthwhile one about our relationship to death, and then also a filmmaker processing how their films capture a life that is now no longer around is a tough thing, but I think a worthwhile one. And so I would say definitely check that out at the Northwest Film Forum. I'm very glad it's playing there. I feel like it's not a one that would play anywhere else if it was not at the Northwest Film Forum, so very glad that it's there.
That's why we love the Northwest Film Forum. I will say, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to see this just because I read a little bit more about what it is. And I'm a little scared of it. And I also have an 8-year-old right now who's constantly asking me questions about death. So it's back on my mind much more frequently than I would like it to be.
Only go into it if you're feeling up for it. Definitely a pick that I'm saying be take care of yourself, be okay. But I still think is worth checking out if you read about it and think it's interesting. What is your next pick?
I'm going to hit my last 2 very quickly.
Do it.
They are both at the Beacon, so I'm going to put them together. One is one of the great Criminals Are Actually Losers movies of all time. Elaine May's Mikey and Nicky, starring the great John Cassavetes and the equally great Peter Falk. There was a time when our greatest ethnic movie stars used to make TV shows like Johnny Stompanato and Columbo, and the rest of the time would collaborate with daring an up-and-coming, well, not at this point, now she was established, amazing filmmakers like Elaine May to make these incredibly complex this is essentially a two-hander about a criminal and his friend who spend an evening in Manhattan together. But what is amazing is that they shot so much footage, and May had to steal the negative from the theater, from the production company, because they were trying to take it away from her. And at the end of the day, it's just a movie about 2 pathetic sad sacks, but it's just extraordinary. So that would be my pick. A little bit of a bummer, but also a really fun movie. However, at the end of the month, the Beacon is showing a movie I haven't seen. in its entirety. Colossal Youth,
Ooh,
directed
okay.
by Pedro Costa. The reason I haven't seen it in its entirety is if you've ever experienced any of Pedro Costa's movies, they really are movie theater necessary cinema. They are slow boils, shot in like something of a magical realism style, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've seen any, but they also tend to be about the same favela in Brazil. And his movies are just Titanic in sort of, he's a Titanic international filmmaker, admired by Apita Chong from Thailand, was admired by Bela Tarr from Hungary. And I've never been able to just like find the headspace to sit down and watch these. So I don't know if I'm going to get to this because it's like Sunday at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. But this, I would argue, is the ideal Beacon movie-going experience because it's a challenging non-English language film that moves slowly and really requires you to be in a room reckoning with it, which is hard to do on your couch when your phone is easily accessible. So, Colossal Youth, Pedro Costa, 1994.
I will take your word for it.
Making the 2006. I was way off, but it's meant to be a really, really interesting movie. And I'm sorry, I said Brazil. That it's actually Portuguese, and it takes place in the Fontanas neighborhood in Lisbon. So I was way off there too.
We got there.
We got there. I'm glad I checked that. But yes, film's part of the Criterion Collection as well.
Wonderful. Well, I'll just rattle off two quick ones to close out. And the first, I'll have a disclaimer. It's going to be First Cow, the Kelly Reichardt film that my colleagues in the Seattle Film Critics Society are playing at the Northwest Film Forum as part of their SFCS at 10. I was not part of that nominating committee and don't stand to benefit from it in any way other than I just like people seeing good movies. And I think First Cow is one of the most beautiful Pacific Northwest movies ever made.
Can I confess something here?
Yeah.
That's the only Kelly Reichardt movie I've never seen.
See, it did not get the love it deserved. I still remember right before the pandemic seeing it at a press screening, being like, that was incredible. I then spoke to Kelly Reichardt, and we were starting to
One of the gods.
We were starting to get a sense of where things were going, and then it's like, well, I don't know if anyone's ever going to see this. I still think it has gained an appreciation.
Yes.
But if you can see it in a theater, you should do so. It has great performances, such great cinematography. It's very funny in its own way. I think Kelly Reichardt is always secretly a funny filmmaker.
Yeah, people don't give her enough credit for her film that followed this one, the name of which escapes me right now.
Showing Up
is very
Yeah.
funny and like
Yeah.
one of the great portraits of like a local artist. I need to rewatch it now that I'm living in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, so go out to see First Cow and then swing on to Showing Up as well. And then my very last one, and I know we had talked a little bit about Greg Araki, but I am
yes.
going to say to close out the month, Mysterious Skin at the Beacon, because I was thinking more about it after we had talked a little bit about Greg Araki in the context of I Want Your Sex, and thinking that I really want to express that, like I Want Your Sex and think it is good, but this is like Greg Araki at his best to me, and I think holds up in a way that just really like doesn't happen all that much because it's very much a precise portrait of its time and the characters and like time capsule, but then also the like sort of portrait of the domestic of pain of like growing up unfortunately feels only all the more resonant. It is again going to be a very heavy one that I would say has a lot, especially in the final sequence, that kind of just hits like a truck, but in a way that I think serves this overall vision and has also just like really great performances as well across the board. And yeah, I would not be able to say that I had talked about the best movies to see in Seattle if I did not give this one more of a shout out and mention at the end.
Yeah, I mean, I also am sort of intrigued. I've not seen this one. I'm intrigued by the Joseph Gordon-Levitt in a role like this because
He used to be an actor.
He hasn't done a lot of acting lately,
No, I know.
right?
He's popped up in some things here and there, but no, this was like Joseph Gordon-Levitt at the height of kind of, I think, him doing really interesting work. It's a very messy, complicated performance. Yeah, I'm like looking at his filmography of recently. It's not a lot. He's
What
done
was his
some
last movie?
He was a voice actor in Wake Up Dead Man as the baseball announcer.
Okay, that's not anything. He
Killer-
is friends with Ryan Johnson, right? So
Yeah, so I guess because of Brick.
And Looper, Looper is one of the great sci-fi movies
Yeah.
of the last.
He was in Paradise Records, which I know was like shot locally. That's the Logic movie, but I don't know how big of a role. he had.
Logic.
Yeah, whole other story there.
Okay, interesting.
But other
We'll
than
save
that,
for
I-
we'll do a
Yeah, I know.
4-hour episode about that at another time.
Another day, another time.
Speaking of long movies,
Yes.
should we take a quick break and pivot to our conversation about The Samurai and the Prisoner?